So Bruce, if you're heading out fishing, where do you start?
Very first thing you do is you've obviously got to check the weather. So I'll look at the weather maybe a couple of 3 days ahead. I look at the weather maps and I look at the isobars of what the isobars are doing, and obviously there's a prediction of what to be expected. And then on the night before, again, double check it, make sure it's all good. And then in the morning, again, you double check the weather. So then what we know is which way the wind is going to be blowing, how strong it's going to be blowing, and also importantly is tide. When is the high tide and the low tide, and which way that wind will be blowing with the outgoing tide. So in other words, if you've got wind against tide, in other words, the wind's blowing that way, the tide's going that way, the waves will stand up. But when the tide's running that way and the wind's going that way, you'll have a lot calmer. So you can plan your trip so you don't get beaten up and crashed around and unnecessary, and it's all nice and safe for the family. Southeast 15, so it's still going to stay on that southeast quarterly. And Sunday 15, rising 25. So in other words, that high is moving off the country, but down to the south, so that the wind structure is always going to stay to the southeast. Jackson Beta, it's not the best wind. Unfortunately, southeast with that bit of cold, fish are off the bite, mean phases and that flash, but if you don't go, you're never going to know. So you just get out there and do it. Yeah, no, I just use Google for Hauraki Golf, Met Service. It's Met Service New Zealand, and they're pretty darn good.
And so what do you decide to take on a trip?
Well, most important thing for me is bait. I take a selection of bait. It depends on where I'm going and what I'm going to do and what depth of water, conditions on the day. But generally, I'm an advocate of stray lining. I love getting in and targeting those fish. So we'll take bait and burley with us.
Yeah.
We'll make sure there's plenty of cold water on board. We'll have ice packs on board to keep the fish chilled. Once we catch them, we eckie them and keep them chilled. Got to keep those in prime condition. But also water is important, or fizzy drinks on the boat. One of the little tips I've mentioned before, especially if you've got kids that or even adults that are prone to feeling a little bit sort of seasick, take chewing gum. Chew chewing gum, and that keeps the jaw moving, keeps fluids going down your throat, and it takes away half the issues itself. Sunscreen, really, really important. Old fellas like me, back in our days, I don't think it was even invented, but nowadays it's really important you have sunscreen, even on cloudy days, because you get windburn as well.
Right.
Reflection off the water. So obviously, just generally take care of yourself. It's what you'd take on a picnic or whatever, but you're on the boat and you can't sort of walk off down the road and grab something. So just plan, or even do a list of stuff that I leave permanently on the boat, such as extra sunscreen, extra water, etc. like that.
Yeah. And what about your gear? Like when we're starting off with a boat and getting it all ready, what do you need to check before you take your boat down to the harbour?
Well, even before you leave home, you want to make sure that your life jackets are on board. Everybody, and a life jacket that is suitable for each person. In other words, you've got little kids on board, you only put a jacket on them that will fit them properly. Big life jackets are uncomfortable and also dangerous if in the water, so every life jacket should fit properly, and get people to try them on and make sure that that's fitting comfortably. That's great, so they're put away. You've got your flares on board, you've turned on your VHF, make sure your battery's good condition before you leave home, because if the battery's been flat. So you turn on your VHF, make sure that that's all tickety-boo. Go around the trailer, make sure all the lights are working, brake lights, indicators all good to go, and basically off you go.
Perfect. And what about bungs?
Everybody's going to do it.
What's your secret with bungs?
Everybody's going to do it. The way in which I operate my boat is that I'm all hooked up the night before and ready to go. And the one thing you have to do is turn the battery on. So once I've turned the battery on, I check with the power trim that I've got charge, because the motor will go up and down, and then I religiously go down and just put my bung in and make sure it's there. But also another little tip is, if you've got a boarding ladder, is to make sure that's clipped up, because
Right.
when you launch your boat, if your boarding ladder's down, it's going to dig into the ramp of the sand as well. So it's a 3-step. Click, batteries on, boarding ladder on, bung on, into the car, we're out of here.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that, Bruce.
No problem at all.
We'll catch you again next time.
Look forward to it.